Welcome to another edition of Inside the Headset with New Palestine high school head football coach Kyle Ralph. I am Wes Anderson, special teams coordinator, wide receiver coach here, and coach, episode 3 here. Finished up Center Grove yesterday, and today we're going to go back a year to 2018 and talk about the state championship game against Decatur Central. A game we won 28-14. And before we kind of get into kind of the nuts and bolts of the game, one of the things I'd love for you to give people some perspective on is some of the logistics that go into game day at Lucas Oil Stadium when you play the late game. And the reason I bring that up is, I think we work so hard to create structure and routine and, to make our kids comfortable doing that. And you do that for 13 or 14 weeks. And then you get to that, when you play the late game at Lucas Oil, you get into this mode of extreme uncertainty. You don't know what time the game's going to start. You don't know what time you're going to be able to go on the field. You don't know how long your warm-up's going to be. You don't know what time to go get dressed, where that is so different than what we do every other week. So I think people would love to hear a little bit of insight into kind of that part of the logistical challenge of getting ready to play down there late. In our example, when the game before us goes to 4 overtimes or whatever the heck it was, and the game ends up starting like an hour and 10 minutes late. So talk a little bit about that, if you wouldn't mind.
Yeah. I think the benefit was obviously we had been there a couple times before. And I think in 14, we were the middle game. So we really didn't get delayed or have that many distractions for that one. Now our game went so long, the game behind us suffered for all the points that got scored in that game. But, it was 15. We were the late game then in 15, and we got delayed a pretty fair amount in that one. It wasn't crazy, but that one then we ended up getting less warm-up time. And so having had the learning experiences of being down there for those things was really important just to me as a coach, and then being able to prepare the players essentially for the uncertainty that's going to happen on those state championship things. So first and foremost, it is absolutely incredible by the Indianapolis Colts that we get to go and use that facility for the state championships. Being right in the middle of the state, essentially geographically, it is such a wonderful spot to be able to play a high school football state championship in Lucas Oil. I mean, that place is absolutely second to none as far as a venue for a state championship. So, the Colts and Mr. IHSAA being able to really allow that to happen, the IHSAA making that stuff happen with the Colts, I think is incredible. And when you use a place like that, there's a couple states that use multiple state championship venues to avoid some of the things that you just said. So, I think using that venue for that is amazing for high school athletes. It's just such a special environment to be able to go downtown, play in your, home state NFL team stadium, and some of the inconvenience you kind of got to wash to the side because you're playing in such an amazing place. So, anyway, it's something that we talk to the kids about throughout the week. And there's really nothing else to say, honestly, except for the fact that we just continuously remind the kids that Friday or Saturday, whichever one of the two that we play on that particular year, you've just got to be flexible. And we will try to give updates as best as possible in regards to when we're going to be doing things. That 18 year, I remember, I think we warmed up 3 times.
Yeah.
Inside the bowels of the stadium in one of the big kind of holding convention areas down there, because we thought, okay, the game's almost over. I think Central was playing Dwanger and it was still scoreless, and we figured, okay, well, someone's got to punch one in here at some point. So we went ahead and started our normal warm-up routine. Well, then no one scores. Well, it goes to overtime. So we've kind of restarted it, figuring like, okay, one overtime will take care of this. Well, it doesn't. Then there's a second and a third and a fourth. And, we constantly had our guys going in, out, in, out, in, out to warm up, trying to refigure the timing. And, for me that's in charge of all that stuff, that's one of the hardest things to do is essentially then have to count backwards from where you think the game maybe is going to start at this point, and then figure your warm-up routine out for your kids. Because like you said, football players are a creature of habit, and they get off of that rhythm and stuff. It can really mess some things up. So we try as best we can to keep them on that at least timing rhythm from, point A to point B for when our warm-ups begin to when the actual game kicks off. And that can be really hard. So, outside of just the venue being a little bit intimidating, the size of the stadium, it's the state championship and all that, you've now got to deal with the actual rhythm of the kids and, not mess with that as much as humanly possible, essentially, because they're creatures of habit. I mean, really. So, it does become a big problem. And this Decatur game was certainly one where we had some major issues with timing, and you just got to deal with it. A big credit to our kids. They stayed focused, and honestly, it kind of made me feel better. They kind of laughed it off a little bit as it was kind of going on about, all right, guys, put your gym shoes back on. No. Go ahead and sit back down in the locker room. Okay, skill guys, put your shoes on. We'll go warm up. No one scored. Go back to the locker room. Or now they both made a field goal. Or, so it was difficult. And the linemen kept getting up and then sitting down, then getting up and then sitting down. So at the end of the day, we'll play in a parking lot. I mean, it doesn't matter when we play or where we play. But it definitely, if your kids aren't prepared for that and you just tell them, hey, guys, we're going to show up, we're going to do our normal routine, we're going to go out there, we're going to warm up and play ball, it's not happening that way. It never happens that way, and that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that, but we did try to at least mentally prepare our kids throughout the week of like, guys, here's some possible circumstances. You've just got to be prepared for it, and you've got to deal with it as it comes, and we'll try to keep you as informed as to what's going on as we possibly can. And you guys just have to mentally be able to stay focused and adjust to that. So, there's only one certain thing on state championship week, and that's that game one's going to kick off on time. I mean, we've had reduced warm-up. And those, the IHSAA officials try to do a great job of getting us the appropriate on-field warm-up time. I do remember, I think the Snyder game in 15, we didn't even get maybe 20 total minutes or something like that, because part of your time then is when you go back in, you have to be back in the tunnel by X time for the intro videos. So you may only get about a 10 to 12 minute on-field warm-up. And so you've got to have a plan for that. And, it can be difficult, but that's your job as a head coach. You've got to have those scenarios kind of mapped out, either on paper or in your head, of what we're going to do and when we're going to do it. And, your kids have just got to be, I guess, a little bit mentally tough and kind of focused on the fact that this game's going to kick off at some point. We don't know when, but when it does, we'll be ready.
How much of an advantage is there an advantage? So I'll use the last 2 years as an example, 2018 against Decatur Central, 2019 against Valparaiso. This was your third and your fourth trip down there to be through this process. Is there an advantage there that you've done this before? You know what to expect. You know how to prepare our kids versus your opponent that Decatur had never been there before, Valpo had never been there before. Does that translate to something tangible on the field in your mind?
I think that logistically, yeah, like I said, it's just being able to adjust to those things on the fly, and so much of the uncertainty that comes with that day. My big thing, though, is you still practice throughout the week the normal way. You still prepare throughout the week the normal way. And at the end of the day, 11 of your players go out there on the field against 11 of theirs. And it doesn't matter whether it's in Lucas Oil or, at New Pal or at Decatur or, in some grass field in the middle of nowhere. It really makes no difference. The kids are going to play and the coaches are going to coach. The 18 team, maybe 3 or 4 of those kids on that team had even physically performed on the field in the 2015 loss that we had. So 95% of that team had never played in a state championship environment before. So you really don't know how they're going to, react to that, or how it might affect their play at all. So, again, it's just a football field. It's just in a bigger stadium, and it's for a little bit bigger stakes. But at the end of the day, it comes down to the 11 kids on the field and how well can they execute and how well prepared have they become. So, I mean, again, is there an advantage? I think logistically understanding the week and the process of the week, probably so. As far as having an advantage when it comes to actually going out there on the field on that particular Friday or Saturday, not really. I mean, your kid's got to play the game. And again, maybe I have the experience of coaching in a state championship game as a head coach, but my players certainly don't have the experience of really having played in one before. So that's really the X factor, because once they go out there, like I said in the video the other day, there's nothing I can do to help them.
Yeah.
I mean, I can tell them as much as I want to, guys, it's just a football field. And, we go down there throughout the week and do our little practice in there. Hey, look around and soak it in and see how large the stadium is and take a good look at all this stuff. But I have no control over how they're going to react on that Friday or Saturday night to actually being down there and playing in that game. I can try to prepare them for it, but my experience down there has no effect on their actual experience or general performance. So it just, it comes down to how well have you practiced and prepared, and let's put the ball on the tee and let's go play.
Well, let's actually do that. Let's put the ball on the tee. So as we get going here, this first drive is gonna end in a missed field goal. And before we start, kind of like we did with the Center Grove, kind of when we started this game, and give me a little bit of an evaluation of their personnel, because there are 3 D1 guys, 3 NAIA guys, D2 guy on the field here. Am I correct with that for them?
Yeah. So evaluation wise, they'd had a great season. Obviously, they're in the state championship game. It was kind of weird how they are not actually far away from us as a school, but we ended up going north in the bracket and they went south, and they were really kind of a little bit of a Cinderella story team that year, and it had kind of come out of nowhere. Their staff does a nice job, and boy, they had some absolutely spectacular players on this team. Quite frankly, this is, there's a couple of games in my 7 years where, when I turn on the tape and I see what the other team's got and we start doing a little bit of a personnel eval, this was one of the very few times where I really felt like their personnel was a major, major problem for us at almost every single position that we had.
I agree with that.
Yeah, I mean, they had some really elite level players here. I think their defense had 4 Division I kids on it. Both defensive tackles are D1. Essentially the free safety Rover kid is a major Power 5 offer kid, and then one of their defensive backs in their cover 0 scheme is a major Power 5 commit kid. So, the hard part about that personnel-wise then is we felt like they would take their Power 5 D1 kid that's a defensive back, and they would put him on our best receiver, which really essentially is going to neutralize our top threat, which was Colby. And that then became a huge problem because he was really our go-to guy in the passing game because he himself was a great athlete. But we felt like their plan would be to negate him with their best defensive player, which is pretty much exactly what happened. We thought their other Power 5 kid would essentially be in charge of Charlie or the quarterback, one of the two, and would just sit back there and be the rover, which, again, is essentially exactly what happened and is a major problem. The 2 defensive ends pose a huge issue as well. The kid on the top, I think he's number 40 up there, probably one of the best defensive players we've played against in my 7 years, to be honest. I thought he was really undervalued as a prospect. I really, really liked him a lot. He gives us a lot of problems during this game.
Yeah, it's Shamar Smith. He's at Northern Illinois now.
Yeah, he was a really tremendous, tremendous player. And then the other kid's also a Division I offered kid. So, The nose guard, I think, went on to play college football as well somewhere, and then all three linebackers went D2 or to a really, really high-level NAIA school. I mean, I think one of the other DBs went on to play college. I mean, they had 9 college football players on their defense alone. So it was a huge problem. Their defense had been incredible all year. I think they were holding teams to – on the season, they were holding teams to something like under 2 yards a carry. I mean, it was absolutely absurd what they've been able to accomplish against teams, and their passing defense with their cover zero and the amount of pressure they put on was really, really strong. So this was probably one of the worst matchups I think we've had in my 7 years in regards to just knowing they're going to play cover zero the entire night, knowing we're going to get a 6 to 7 man box depending on if it's 0 or 1, and we really don't have good one-on-one matchups across the board. I was really concerned about that. So, their scheme, though, within that was really simple. They're pretty much going to run a 3-3, cover 1 or cover 0, and they might have a little bit of variation from time to time, but for the most part, you were going to get a 3-3, and we thought they may try to run a little bit of bear. That was just from some previous seasons. I had coached against people on their staff in the past and went back years on tape to go look at what their coordinators had done. And I thought that they may try to employ a similar scheme. So we actually were really well prepared for that because I'd gone back to years worth of film and watched a couple of things. So we actually had prepared well for that stuff, which was a huge bonus for us, obviously. But boy, they had some players, and a lot of it in this game, our plan offensively was going to be to just chip away. Yep. We felt like we could still move the ball effectively, but with the way that their defense was so risky and their pressures and playing cover zero, it was really one of those things where we've almost got to make their kids be bored with stopping the kind of the mundane and just simple stuff. And then we've got to set them up for some big hitters, and we've got to make them play ultra disciplined, and hopefully they'll make some mistakes. We certainly weren't going to out-athlete them, that's for sure. So, again, a lot of it just came down to we've got to just stay consistent. We've got to understand that we're not just going to drive the ball right down the field. We almost the opposite of the Center Grove thing. We felt we had to maintain long drives because eventually they were going to make mistakes. That was probably one thing the defense did not do well, was when teams were moving the ball against them, as drives went on, they made a lot more critical errors. So we felt like if we could sustain some drives, we could get them to make mistakes. And it somewhat pans out that way.
So we come out, as you might expect. Play one is inside zone, and we don't quite get on the front side backer here.
Yeah, so this is one thing we did not expect that they had as a great change of pace. They played this tilt one to try to spike our center in the shoulder pad, so that they're essentially telling you that you're not running inside zone into the front side. And a lot of that was so that Charlie had to bounce the ball backside then, and if we did pull it, they had that extra hat over there. It's a really good thought process by them. We end up making them pay for it a couple of times here, one of which is coming up shortly.
This is it right here. So take a second. There it is. Yeah, second play of the game. So take a second here, and you're talking about the tilt nose. Some coaches call it a rock eye technique. And usually in the 3-3, he's going to play literally square to the line of scrimmage, and he's going to be right on Austin Keel's nose right here.
Yeah.
And so talk briefly, because this is such a little thing, just a little adjustment that they make that kind of changes basically everything that we do in terms of how we block it, how Chuck reads it, and what this is. Honestly, in my mind, I mean, we block this really well, and Chuck makes a great cut. But because they do this, that leads to a 55-yard run right here.
Yeah, so the whole concept is when that guy is standing there like that, if you pause it, when that guy is angled like that, he's essentially going to attack the front side shoulder of our center. And, for an inside zone team, when we play against a defense that plays a zero, we're reading that guy. For the running back is reading that guy for his actual cut. So when you play that front side tilt, my running back's rules on that essentially are that technique is telling you that you're not going here. So the running back is going to start looking for that backside ABC cut pretty much right off the get-go. And what they're trying to do is by coaching philosophy, essentially, knowing how inside zone is supposed to be run and supposed to be coached, what they're trying to do is make you cut the ball back. And if you look at that screen then there are 4 players on the opposite side of Austin, and we only have really 2 to block 4, and we're reading 1. So they will always have a free player to where the ball is technically going to get cut to or pulled to. So it really is a nice scheme. Again, our center, Austin Keel, was a Division II lineman himself that I think is a Division I talent, but was just maybe a hair undersized. And he does a spectacular job on this play. He actually reaches this tilt and makes them pay for this. So you see those 4 guys attack the backside, and you can see Austin actually reach the tilt. Charlie makes a good adjustment jump cut here, and there's literally nobody left then. I mean, they've kind of wasted their personnel because of the scheme. So it's really just great execution here by our kids. It's a great scheme by them, to be honest. We've seen teams do this to us before. But then their Division I kid that's a DB chases us down and catches us at the 10-yard line. So, I mean, that's really what the gist of it is, and it makes things difficult. But like I said, we make them pay for this here, and we'll see it some as time goes on. But they've got a lot of different fronts they're going to throw at us throughout this game, some bear and some other stuff. So here's the tilt again. We've got like a 4, a tilt 1, and then a 5, and the backers are walking all over the place. I mean, they're giving us tons of fronts, and that's what you can do when you play 0 or 1. I mean, you can do almost anything you want in the box, really.
So there's another inside zone.
Yeah, it's another one too where we just, they're forcing the ball backside. We don't have the amount of hats for it, and the unblocked guy ends up being able to get hits on us. So we're still nice opening drive here, though. You can see another different front here from them again. This one is probably not a great read. He probably should have given this ball here, but 40's so talented, he makes an absolutely absurd play right here. Me closes down pretty far, and still plays the quarterback. I mean, that kid's really good. I mean, he's going to be a huge problem throughout this entire game. He's a super talented kid.
So 3rd down here, and I remember a lot of conversation on the headset here about how to play this. We bring the 2 tight ends in, and you talked yesterday about in the second half of that Center Grove game where we're on the left hash, we're on the 4, and you call a play to the left, and we get stuck on the left hash. So my question for you is, did you have that same feeling here? Because we're going to throw the ball to Colby, and it's going to be incomplete, and we're going to kick a field goal from the left hash. So how did your thought process differ here from what happened basically 9 months later in the 3rd quarter at Center Grove?
I mean, yes and no. I knew that Alex struggled a little bit from the left hash, just as a general statement. But, the hard part about this year is he was an experienced kicker, and we hadn't kicked a lot of field goals, but we pulled up for a couple. This was one where I felt like we could get that Power 5 kid to be a little bit more aggressive and get kind of a touchdown right on the pylon here. We end up getting him to step in a little bit here on this kind of Zorro call, but he just plays it incredibly well, and Zach pretty much throws it away. Was it the best call for the situation? It's something that we got exactly what we thought we would get from scouting report and from tape. We max protect this. We get the one-on-one call that we wanted. We just get a lot better covers than we thought we might get, and that's the way things go. you know, again, in hindsight, knowing that we missed the field goal on this one, should I have probably run the ball to the right and got it in the middle of the field? I mean, I guess so, but this scenario was different because we had an experienced kicker. I mean, Alex had kicked for us for essentially 2 years up to this point and had been a kicker for 3 years in total. So, you know, you kind of expect that from here we're going to make this, but again, we shave it right outside the left goalpost. So, you know, it is what it is. And yeah, I mean, the process of thinking here was a little bit different than the other year with a significantly more inexperienced kicker.
Couple
But
things here.
General, I mean, if I can, I'd like to get the ball to the middle of the field, but sometimes that, you know, slips the mind a little bit when you're thinking about what the next best play is. You sometimes forget about what the next one's going to be. So,
couple of things I'll note here, and like you said, we this, I think this thing grazes the left upright on the way by, and I talked a little bit about why that happened yesterday. But a couple of other things I'll note. One, a little concerning for a kicker. So these high school hashes that are laid here are athletic tape.
yeah, they're tape.
They're not painted on. So, and I know, you know, there's some concern about footing and stuff because it's just a little bit different surface, and that's concerning. The other thing too is NFL uprights are narrower.
Yeah,
they're about 3 yards narrower. So if this same kick at our place is good, I mean it's within the left upright. It's not an excuse,
correct, yeah.
but that's something to consider. And you know, the other a couple of other factors in that. So during this week, you get to go down to the stadium one day and you get an hour. And you know, I'm appreciative that you've kind of given that time to be heavy special teams, to let our kids get acclimated to catching balls in that roof, which they're not used to catching balls indoors, and kicking in a narrower
really hard. That's a really
Yeah.
underestimated part of this game, is trying to track the football with that roof being so high. It is disorienting.
The roof's high. You know, there's 94 banners in the ceiling. It's hard to track, and the same thing applies to kickers. And you know, you get a very limited time, and this is, you know, I mean, most years we carry one kicker. So when we go in there and do special teams, we've got to do them all. And so we got a really limited time to get acclimated to how it looks back there, because it's it's so deep behind the uprights. The building goes so far back, you know, for the first deck and the second deck and then the top deck. It's a weird visual, and you know the uprights are more narrow.
Yeah.
So you don't get a lot of time to work it when you're down there during the week. And then we talked at the beginning about that compressed warm-up time. I think Alex maybe kicked 4 or 5 on the field in warm-ups, 4 or 5 field goals. I mean, kicked a couple extra points, kicked a few kickoffs just to get his leg loose. And you know, ideally, when you get the full hour, you know, he can do 15, 20 kicks if he wants to.
Yeah.
But you're really limited on that. And then you come right out of the gate, you get right down to the 4-yard line or 6-yard line, and you stall. And for a really difficult kick from a tight angle into narrow uprights, it's a challenge. And I think something that again, like I said yesterday, the average fan doesn't really see that. They see this as a 23-yard field goal. How hard can it be? And it's not. You know, it's not always. Say again.
A lot harder than you think it is.
A lot harder than you think it is. So we miss a field goal. They're going to come out here and you know, one of the few 5A teams that we play that you see a lot of guys go both ways, like we do.
Yeah.
So you see a lot of the same faces here in the skill positions, but schematically, as we go through this game, you're going to kind of see the kitchen sink. They do a ton of different stuff.
Right. So defensively, the plan for this game, you know, you're going to see here on tape, they run about 4 different offensive systems in essentially in one offensive package, I guess is the best way to put it. You're going to see pro. You're going to see flex bone and veer type stuff, kind of a run and shoot offense almost. You're going to see, some elements of spread and there's some triple out of all those packages, and it's definitely unique. And it makes it hard to prepare for because you've got so many different things that you've got to get ready for. I felt like, again, kind of all the weeks of practice that we've had, this one really sticks out in my mind as one of the best I think that our defense has ever had preparation-wise. We had some really, really good tendencies on them, we felt like. And our kids mentally were, I think, especially considering all the different things that they do, which can make it incredibly difficult, plus the talent they have at those different spots that they're trying to get the ball to from each one of them. It can make it really, really hard on you. And I thought that mentally our kids were about as into this as I think I've ever seen them be. The tendencies from each one of the different offensive systems they run, I felt like they were really dialed into those. It was just a great week of practice. So, and you're going to see them again, similar to kind of the Center Grove stuff we talked about. They have so much talent. They don't have to change personnel very often to go from pro to bone to spread they don't have to take kids off the field for that stuff. So that makes it even more difficult because normally you can see, here comes number, 49. There's a fullback running onto the field, and okay, we've got to start thinking about what that's going to be. They don't have to do that, and that makes it really hard on trying to call your next defensive play. And actually, in this particular game, I'm coordinating both sides of the ball. So I'm actually doing offense and defense right now. So it makes it that much more difficult to be able to do those things. But our kids had a tremendous, tremendous week.
So I'm going to go back here because we're in 3rd and 3 here. And this is a really big play here by Maxon and Kyle on the backside of this. So I want to talk about this. And then I have another question for you after that. Really, so talk to me kind of about this little rocket toss play here.
Yeah, so this is one of their D1 guys. They're essentially just trying to completely outflank the entire team with his general speed, and we do a really nice job of just playing kind of a fit gap to the play side. I mean, Matt and Cade up top there, and Austin in the middle, and the linebackers do a wonderful job of just putting their jersey in that hole and playing half a man. And he really had nowhere to go, so he chooses to cut back, and our backside cutback guys were just pretty much sitting there waiting for him. It's just a really great play by our defense doing their job. Again, that single gap control out of this. We've got a slant call on right here. And, it's just a wall of white. We execute this exceptionally well. This play is hard to stop, though. We had issues with this same type of play 2 weeks prior to this against Lafayette Harrison. They had given us a lot of trouble with their rocket toss, and Decatur ran the same play quite a bit. So this is something we practiced a considerable amount, knowing that with the type of athlete they had and the issues that Harrison had given us, we worked our butts off on this all week long because this is a play that we could not let single-handedly beat us. And we'd showed some weakness to it in previous weeks. So this is a really nice job.
So I'm gonna stop sharing my screen here, so in case you got your top off or anything.
We're fully clothed.
Okay, so you talk about one of the questions I had from a family member of mine that actually loves what we're doing here, but doesn't really understand some of the inner workings of football. When you talk about a tendency, I think a coach knows what a tendency is, but when you break film down, explain a tendency and explain what that does for defense.
So, essentially it's kind of what you would think it would be just from the actual definition of the word. For football wise, in the real world, you would have a tendency if every morning you wake up at 6 a.m., you're in the shower by 6:15, you have a cup of coffee at 7. That would be kind of what people would call a morning routine, but as far as someone studying you, that would be what they would call your tendencies. Football-wise, it's no different. Offensive coordinators like and I'm the same way. They like to stay in a little bit of routine, and they like to do certain things from certain formations at certain times. And my job as a coordinator is to try to not have those things be traceable, essentially. And when we study film and we break that stuff down, there are some people that do get into a bit of a routine where from this formation, you're going to run only a select few amount of plays. And we know that. And then when we look at it even further, it might be if they come into this on 2nd and 5 or shorter and they're in this formation, well, now they only run 2 different plays. And now we can inform our kids of, hey, if you get in this scenario and it's 2nd and 4 and they line up like this, these 2 plays it's going to be one of these 2 plays. And sometimes tendencies are based upon where a certain kid aligns, and sometimes it's based on how he lines up. Sometimes it's based on where teams flip their offensive linemen to. Maybe they got a really good player, number 77, and sometimes they put him on the right side, sometimes on the left side. Well, why? Well, when he's over on the right, they run right 97% of the time. When he's on the left, they run left 95% of the time. Well, we need to track that. We need to inform our kids of those things. So it's a lot. It can be a lot of detail. Again, like I said, especially when you've got a team that's running so many different offensive systems with so much personnel. But our kids are really smart kids. The linebackers on this 18 team, Jacob Hockett was a 4.0 student. Luke Ely was above a 4.0 student. Avon is a 4.0 student. CJ was a really great student. And those guys are the ones that are making our checks in the box for us. And so they're really the ones that have to be incredibly in tune to the plan. And when you've got really smart kids like that are also good football players that can take care of those things for you, our guys were almost calling out their 1 or 2 potential plays before the ball got snapped. And they were really in tune to what was going on. So knowing, especially against a team that's full of some great athletes, knowing with at least, I don't know, let's just say 50-50 at what's possibly coming helps your defense significantly. And it takes a lot of work on the coaches' behalf to figure out some of those tendencies. Data entry stuff has obviously helped, but I remember when I first started coaching, I had to chart that stuff, and I was writing every formation, every down and distance, every play, and what they gained on a notepad in little boxes. And it would take me, 12 hours to break games down. Then I have to go back and then restudy each little box that I'd written on a notepad. I'd have to go back and then start trying to find patterns in those things. Now you can, enter it in the huddle, and a computer can spit you out at least formational stuff, but it takes a little bit of eyeball work still. If you want to really, really be into it, you've got to use your eyes some, but
well, I want to give you a little bit of a compliment here, because I think that eyeball part of this is something that you do really well, and probably better than a lot of coordinators, to a degree. Yeah. To a degree where, you can identify that pattern really quickly, and a little bit frustrating to me because I don't see that stuff the way that you see it. You know what I mean? Where like I'm in there and I'm churning and I'm cranking through stuff, and then you come back 2 hours later and you're like, oh yeah, well, every time the running back is even with the quarterback, it's this. And I'm like, oh yeah, of course, or
I'm bad at math and science, so we're even, I guess.
Yeah. Then. Yeah. So, or every time the right guard split is a foot wider, it's this play. Or every time, they get in this formation to the right, they're going to do this. And every time they get in the formation to the left, they're going to do this. So I think that there's a lot of value in it, obviously, but I think you do a great job of arming our kids with some of those patterns that not every coach sees.
Yeah. I'm not going to compliment myself, but I think a big part of that then is how can you convey it to the kids in a way that they understand it. And I think that's probably where we've all done the best at is take the knowledge that we've got and the information we've gathered, and then get it to the kids so that they can understand this. And there's a fine line between, overloading them and keeping it so simple that they can execute it at a really, really high level. And if they can't do those things, well, then it's worthless information, really.
Sure.
But yeah, thankfully I was able to play a lot of football, and I've been around it quite a bit. So sometimes, you've got a little bit of an advantage there with some of that stuff. But yeah, it just takes time. It just takes a lot of hard work and paying attention. But I think when I was, like I said, when I was a younger coach working around some really great people, I kind of got trained that way some. So yeah.
So they're going to punt here.
The fateful almost should have been block punt right here.
Oh my goodness! And I don't. Well, Tyler Horsley. So Keel has to come out. He had a helmet problem. Is that right?
Yeah. So Austin broke the strap on his helmet and had to come out of the game for an equipment issue. So Tyler was our backup nose guard and really had played a great season for us. Was honestly one of our kind of senior moment kids that had been an unbelievable weight room kid and really developed himself into a great player for us. And as we changed the lineup around, he ended up becoming a backup after having been a starter, but had a good playoff run and all that stuff for us, had a wonderful season. But it's a little bit funny. These are the things that in a game and I remember on the headsets, you were like, oh my God. So Tyler is actually, for all the wonderful things, he's actually legally blind. And have this, there were multiple times in games where he would run like a foot or two past the actual person he was trying to tackle, and he'd literally miss a tackle. And he definitely wasn't as fast as Austin either. And you had done a wonderful job of setting this scheme up to essentially get Austin free.
Yeah.
And they make a mistake and don't block the guy that Austin would have been, which is exactly what you thought would happen here. And we had to sub Tyler, and so he's not as quick, and he actually misses the ball, quite frankly, because he likely can't see it. You can see – he literally doesn't put his hand up in time, and he runs right past the punter. This is one of those things where it's only funny because we won.
Yeah.
And it wasn't funny in the time, but it was – I remember you and I absolutely dying laughing, recapping this play on the bus ride home. And what would have been – I really think Austin would have blocked this punt for sure.
Yep, he blocks it, and he probably falls on it in the end zone too.
Yeah. Oh God.
And we laugh about it. I hope Tyler Horsley watches this, and I hope that Tyler laughs too, because I'm going to tell you, Coach, and he'll be the first to tell you this is the slowest first step right here.
Yeah.
Little bucket step on a free run to the punter. And that's part of the scheme thing too. So they're going to run two different.
The first time in Tyler's life he's likely ever started a play from a 2-point stance, because I'm 99.9% sure that Big Horse was an X-man for his entire life.
Yep.
So,
yep.
He had his opportunity to be in a 2-point receiver stance here, and he took it.
This was a scheme thing. You're going to see two different punts from them in this game, and this is a traditional, what we call a pro-style punt. This is how a lot of NFL teams punt. 5 linemen, wing, single receiver, and then a personal protector here. And we block a lot of these when teams punt from pro style. But Decatur only did it in 4th and long, and they brought the actual punter in. The other times they punt, they're going to punt from empty, and their quarterback's going to punt, and we're going to play that totally differently. But we had this plan in there, and I knew the long snapper was going to free release. He never blocks anybody, and I had seen this guard fan a little bit, and I thought, and like you said, this was kind of designed for Austin, and we stuck the nose right in the A gap there, and wanted to try to see if we could just get him a free run, and we do, and it plays perfectly. Everything, the best laid plan, right? And Keel comes out for helmet strap, and our blind kid can't do it. Yeah. I'm kidding. I'm joking. But that's the
blind part's not a joke. Yeah.
Yeah. But that's that's football. That's kind of the business, and that happens sometimes. So here we come for drive two. We get down to the 6th on drive one, and here we come back on offense now for the second time.
Yeah, so we come back with another inside zone here. We heard them on it on the previous drive and obviously chunked that big one off. They're still playing the tilt one. I talked to the kids on the sideline about some of the adjustments that we've got to make here. Obviously, we're kind of locking on to whoever spikes that B-gap player, and we're just going to have to deal with it. The big principle here is we've just got to be physical up front, embrace the one-on-one matchups, and trust that our offensive line that had a really good season is going to continue to do so. We get everybody up. We get a hat on a hat here, and Charlie makes a nice cut, and we get a little burst. But we feel like they're kind of playing like we thought. So now it just becomes a matter of settling in and again being able to embrace those one-on-one matchups that we're going to get throughout the game here. So you're just going to, really that's what you're going to see over and over until we feel like we can take advantage of something or they make a mistake.
So now this tilt nose starts cut blocking, cut tackling the center, which leads to a different set of problems entirely.
Yeah. Truthfully, when teams start doing this, to me as a coordinator, this is a sign that they've given up. They know they're losing that matchup. They know they're losing that essentially that block. All you're doing now is taking a potential player that could tackle the football because that kid's a really good nose guard. You're just taking him out of the play. You essentially have just surrendered. And all we're going to do is either trap him and climb or just go ahead and one-on-one trap him with the center there. But, yeah, to me, and we've had a lot of teams try this against us in the past of cutting our linemen so they can't climb the levels. What you've essentially told us is you can't stop us and you're giving up. But again, you see another different front here. Now they're essentially playing kind of a 3 or a 2. Let's just call them a 3 right now. They're playing 3-0-4, and they got their backers walked all over the place. It's a challenge.
Try to call our scissor play here, which is kind of a switch vertical concept. That should not be a hook. That should keep going. Try to get a rub on some of this cover zero stuff here. They actually play it pretty well.
Yeah, we get a ton of
pressure. Zach has to choke it down.
Yeah, we got a ton of pressure from Shamar again, too. We mess up this blocking scheme here. Our guard gets beat really bad, and we just get way too much pressure and then eat a sack here. He not good execution from the guys up front, but a really great player for them making a really great play. It's a pretty nice little short swim over that guard. So, yeah. Now this one, we miss a wide open guy. This is kind of a rub route for us here, not in the technical sense of things, but the way that they structured their coverage here. We're going to run 2 ends and then a corner above it, which is a really nice man beater for us. Zach does not read the coverage at all pre-snap here. He should throw it to Colby right now. Colby's guy was pre-snap. Easily the guy that was going to get rubbed on this because of his alignment here. He should have thrown a 3-yard ball that would have probably gone for 12, but he zeroes in on the corner route and throws a tough ball into really tight coverage and overthrows it by quite a bit. This was not the right read here. He didn't look at the structure of the defense and makes a little bit of a poor choice. But again, they're the ones on the field playing, not us. He just locks in way too much on that.
So we're going to punt here. Last punt, down at the 9-yard line.
If you guys kind of remember some of that reference from yesterday, the 2019 Center Grove game, this is, again, that sweet spot that I talked about with Eric. He's so good from this range of pinning people in. Here's one from almost the same area of the field, might be a couple yards shorter, but a year sooner. He sits this ball right up inside of the 10-yard line, and that's a beautiful punt.
Great job there by Grant Wiegand, too.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, Eric was a huge weapon in lots of different facets, but especially his ability to be a great punter too, on top of receiver and DB and outside backer and backup quarterback and all that stuff.
I think this is ISO from them. It's tough to tell. We missed the start of the play here, but
we get chunked on this one. They double down on Kyle and they lead around and they pin our backer in, and we're a little bit out of position on a couple of things there, and they kind of chunk one on us. So I really felt like the best matchup of the day, our D-line against their O-line, I felt like was a huge win for us. The tendencies on top of that stuff, and I really felt like they only had one or two plays on offense that we really had struggled with and were a problem. I thought we could hold them to it. That's probably the one thing going into the game I felt the best about, is if we could score. I thought the magic number was 21. That if we could score 21 points, that they could not beat us, because I didn't think that we'd give 3 touchdowns up.
And you were right.
Yeah, and I was right. But they really only had one or two plays that I thought, if they call them, we're going to have a lot of trouble probably defending that. And it actually, sadly, was the play they scored 2 touchdowns off of. But, yeah. So here's quarterback buck sweep. We do a great job, again, of flattening everything out here. I mean, we really do a great job against this play in general, especially from the gun when we can play stack. And it's a little bit more natural to us. You saw us yesterday stop it against Center Grove from their shotgun buck. I mean, this is a really great play by Jacob Hockett here.
Yep.
And everybody across the board. I mean, Matt fights across faces and gets outside. I mean, it's just a tremendous, tremendous play by our guys.
Holding penalty on this too, and Matt, Matt created that, like you said, about fighting outside of. I think that's the Gibson kid who also plays middle linebacker for them. And man, is that kid a good player? Yeah. I think all 3 of those linebackers are at Marion, if I recall correctly.
I think I might have gotten 3 of them.
And Marion got 3 real good ones with those 3 linebackers. Man alive, can those kids play? So now we're backed up here. A little sprint out.
Really good job here of coverage. Avon goes ahead and sinks because he doesn't have to force the issue on the sprint out here, because the quarterback doesn't escape the pocket. So he does a good job of sinking underneath this this kind of, we call it flood, but essentially they're running kind of a
it's almost an invert of it, really.
Yeah, they're running some kind of like a levels type concept here, except for the one guy. Normally your outside guy is going to go vertical. They run him and break him off, and one of the other guys goes vertical. I mean, people run these things a million different ways. So it's a good job by our defense. We keep him in the pocket. Kyle does a great job of keeping him inside the pocket and making him throw from there, which is a much harder throw, and he just sails it.
Colby does a really nice job down here playing the sticks too.
Yeah.
They throw it's 3rd and probably 12, and they throw about an 8-yard ball here, and Colby's in a really good position down here on the 40 to rally to that in the event they do make a catch.
Yeah, this is well covered.
So here's the quarterback punt, and it's 4th and a mile, it's 4th and 14 here, and it's kind of funny when you watch the TV broadcast of this game. Mark James, good friend of mine, longtime broadcaster, he kind of questions, like, why is there nobody back there? I mean, it's 4th and 14.
Asked me that when the game was over. How come you didn't put a returner back for their punts? It's like, guys, it might not be a punt. I mean, that's the quarterback in an empty set that's about to become quads. I mean, what am I going to do? Take a guy out of the box? Right.
So what they usually do on this is they're in 3-by-2 empty. There's a guy down here off the screen, and this is Kenny Tracy, who usually will motion across here and set right here, and that's what we'd seen on tape. And we had a block in place. Here's our punt return right here. But the bigger deal is this is empty, and there are 3 D1 dudes on the field right now that are eligible to catch a pass. And if we take Brody away and take him back here to return this punt, I then have to put one of my linebackers on a Division I skill player. And I'm, we talked about this during the week, and we drew up probably 7 or 8 different iterations of this, and finally decided at the end of the day, you know what? No, we are not going to let them fake it. And one of our core beliefs about punt return and punt block, there's a reason we're a full-time punt block team, is because we don't really give any reasonable care about punt return yards. As long as our offense comes out, that's fine. That's the ultimate goal.
Right.
And, if you kick it and we don't return it, fine. At least the Dragons come out, and we're going to give the ball to 32 a bunch and hopefully hit our head on the goalpost. And so that's part of why we're a punt block team. We had a block drawn up for this, and it should have been Maxon. We had the block drawn to get Maxon free on this if he motions. And then we're going to kind of bump.
Yeah.
We're going to kind of bump here, and Brody's going to widen for this. And then this is Avon is going to have this. But the problem is they don't motion. So the whole block is kind of messed up here. We do this kind of look, and Kyle's almost going to block one later from this because they protect it wrong. This one they protect right. Keel still almost gets in there around the center. But our philosophy when they got in this empty look, we're playing defense, and we're going to make sure they kick the ball to us. So, like I said, it's kind of funny to listen to broadcasts and they get ready to go to commercial, and Mark James says something like, "There's nobody back there," and Lance Scheib, who's the color commentator, goes, "Yeah, well, that's the quarterback, and they're an empty. They might run off the play." And Mark goes, "Yeah, well, it's 4th and 14," and then they go to commercial. So, yeah, it's 4th and 14, and yes, there's nobody back there, but that's why. I'm not going to let Larry Tracy, who's at Indiana, or at Indiana, or Kenny Tracy, who's going to the MAC, run right by us early in a scoreless game, and they hit a huge punt fake, and now our defense is back on the field. So,
yeah. So you can see here on this play, we come out to start this drive off, and you can see Coach Buchanan's done a great job of getting with these guys on the sideline with the O-line, and they're still trying to cut our guys. So you can see now we just scoop through him and just let the backside guy trap him here. Now he grabs Austin's leg, which should be a penalty and is also dangerous. But again, to me, that's just something like you've just kind of given up on even winning that battle at the point of attack. And anyway, we start off with a penalty, which is not where you want to be. Now we've got ourselves behind the chains. We go ahead and take a one-on-one shot and overthrow a guy again. We actually win this initially, and Zach just overthrows the ball and throws it out of bounds. But, we're wide open up top.
Yeah, Zach was a little bit cranked up.
This was one of those things, for my coaching point on some of these fades and stuff, it absolutely drives me nuts when we talk to our guys all the time of give our guys a chance to play the ball, and he throws this one outside the white out of bounds. We don't even have a chance to even play this thing. So that's another kind of honestly a wasted down here.
I think it's going to be curl. Yep.
Yeah, we run a little bit of a bunch rub here from curl. We really felt like this was probably one of our top 2 routes for the day. We hit this one here. Really get a nice wide open look at a bunch on our curl concept here. Oh no, he sailed that one too.
Yep. Yep.
We get a penalty on one of them. We hit one.
Mm-hmm. So here's a mesh.
Yeah, so here comes mesh. This is pretty well done. When teams play zero against us, mesh is a good call and a good concept for us. We practiced this all week. We didn't think it would be Colby that got open here, but the way that it happens, the underneath guy actually Colby gets himself pretty wide open, and we end up picking up this first down, which is huge to keep us on the field. It's a really good run for the catch by him too.
Interesting
pocket of moving around the pressure as well.
Interesting little adjustment we made in this game. Usually Colby, who's here, and Riker, who's here, split the reps at H. But as this season had gone on, there were situations where we wanted to get both those guys on the field at the same time, and we called it a speed package. So we've got Blake up top as a sophomore who had just come back few weeks earlier from a broken collarbone, who's, finally in the last 2 or 3 weeks starting to play a lot of really meaningful football. And then Raudebusch and Riker or Colby, Riker, and Raudebusch. So, wanted to try to get, especially against the personnel they had, to try to get both of these, our two fastest players, on the field at the same time. And I think you kind of see the benefit of that here with this mesh. And boy, I'm gonna tell you, we quote unquote rub. We rub.
That was totally
we rub Larry really well here with Riker.
He had nowhere to go. That was incidental contact. He had nowhere to go there.
Yep.
Yeah. It's a huge
so
pickup.
nice.
So.
Yep.
Back to inside zone. It's another good run to start off first down. You're into a second and medium situation. That's what we wanted to stay in against a defense like this. Again, you can see now they're playing bear, walking their stack backers out and around. I mean, it's become a bit of a guessing game here.
Mm-hmm.
But we used Charlie as a blocker and Zach as a runner, which again was one of our big plans for this game, to essentially bring the box numbers back to our favor and at least get it into 1-on-1 instead of 2-on-1. So we use Charlie as a blocker and run our quarterback lead zone stuff there and get a nice pickup. There's our quarterback zone.
Yeah.
But we're starting to get a lot more information. You can start to see too there, one thing we felt like I didn't mention earlier, but I think one of the major disadvantages of going to Lucas Oil, especially in the state of Indiana, then is you really have been playing in weather that's at least 40 degrees and under. And occasionally, in some of the years that we've had, I remember the 14 state championship run. It had been under about 15 degrees from Halloween.
Oh, so cold.
Yeah, from Halloween and on, it was under 15 degrees the rest of the season. We actually played, I think the week of Ron Colley, we had 2 days where it was in the negative in the regional championship week. And then the Columbus East week, we had to shovel snow off of the field to even play. But then you go downtown and it's 72 to 75. It is.
I'd say by the end of the night, it is hot in there. I mean, It is legitimately uncomfortably hot in that building.
It is really dry, and then, like you said, by the end of the night, it is really thick in there and humid, and it is really hot. And we felt like our conditioning was going to be a matter of fact. One of the things that we do when we go downtown after that special teams practice you mentioned is I run the guys really hard that week of that day of practice in Lucas Oil, so their lungs can get used to having to deal with that air in there, because it is a major factor. And you're going to start seeing, we're going to start taking over a little bit here and kind of bring their athleticism and talent maybe back down to our level some through conditioning. And I think that was a big part of this game as it wore on, that, I think our guys ended up having a lot of gas in the tank comparatively, because like you said, this is one of the very, very few 5A schools that's similar to us in the fact that they're not a massive school, so they do have to play some guys both ways. And I think that really did help us in the long run, and it actually was something we banked on heavily in the scouting report. Mm-hmm. Like I said, the more plays we could run, I thought the better off we were going to be here. Here's our curl again. This one we get pass interference on and get tackled. We just flat out miss a block up front or two here. Yeah. This one's going to be outside zone, though, because they get this kind of bare front. We go to outside zone, which is a great check by Zach, but we just flat out don't get through the combo block at all here. Cotterman doesn't get up there on Austin's hip, and 51 slips right through. I'd have much rather they kept trying to cut block us. That kid's a good player.
Yeah.
Again, another front from them. There's a three, a tilt one, and a wide five, and we're getting so many different fronts and looks here now. It's difficult. It's difficult to handle for sure.
And we're going to totally miss the mic here.
Yeah, I mean, the amount of communication required on this stuff, it's, again, when you're a 0 or a 1 team, you can do stuff like this because the effort required in the back end is minimal. You cover your guy. You've got Jimmy, you've got Joe, you've got Billy. I mean, it's not hard. So a lot of time can be put into 1,000 different looks in the box, and that makes it a lot harder on us essentially.
Yep.
Because we've got to make sure our communication's tight, and you're going to have breakdowns. It's just the way that it goes.
Yep. So there's how that should have been blocked.
Yeah, we go the complete wrong way here.
Another pass interference penalty here.
Yeah, we get
like this.
This was one of the things that we don't do a lot, but we have against some of the 0 teams is run this slot fade. There have been years we've been really good at it. There have been years we're really bad at it. This was more of a once we knew that Colby was going to be covered by their best player, we felt like Riker was our advantage at that point, and we wanted to come after his matchup. So, yeah, this is not something you see very often. A lot more now in college football and some in the NFL, though, because a lot of those teams do play a bunch of 0. This slot fade is a really nice play. We get open, we just get grabbed and drugged to the ground. But it's a good play for us. We overthrow the ball again, but it's a really good play. And we get the pass interference call, which is great.
Mm-hmm.
Same thing. We're just kind of pounding away for yards here. It's all about repetition. Inside zone again, making them consistently stop it. Too much pressure. We don't get open on the route that we want here. These were our curl. It was kind of like a little curl and go here, and we don't get it. And we end up, Zach does a really great job here of keeping this play alive. We have a pretty solid pocket. We actually collapse them down inside, and they blow contain, and Zach escapes and makes a great play with his feet for our first touchdown here.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a really good job. We've got a little bit of a kind of a take a shot play off of something that we've been really good at. This guy doesn't bite on it at all and plays pretty disciplined here, and Zach makes him pay for a lack of discipline in another place. So really good play by Zach on this one of not forcing a ball. He doesn't get what he wants. All right, we're gonna go ahead and escape the pocket and start moving. And huge play, great play.
So we're gonna take a little tight shot, that extra point there. So we're gonna take a 7. We're gonna take a 7-0 lead here. Decent job on that kickoff there. A nice play there by Matt Brown on first down.
Yeah. I mean, we're playing really well on defense right now, which, again, this is kind of one of the things that we felt like was one of our major advantages. I felt like our defense was going to have a really nice night, which they did. One back power, same thing. We did a really great job on this all week long. We do a great job of it right here. Kind of a counterish type look, but same concept. And this is where we wanted them, though. If we could get them into 3rd and longs, we really felt like we had a huge advantage because their passing game is not something they'd really had to rely on much this season. Their run game with the buck sweep and all the different things they do have been so strong. We get a really great pass rush by Kyle here, who hits this guy right in the near shoulder pad and kind of the neck, pops the ball up, and Jacob Hockett standing right there to capitalize on it. It's just, again, a great example of our guys are in their rush lanes. We're doing a great job. We've got great pressure. Kids are where they're supposed to be, and we make a play.
Huge play in this game. That's a huge play right there to set us up, kind of keep that momentum building in our direction and set us up on the 6-yard line.
Yeah. This is our quarterback concept here on the inside zone. Again, everyone kind of figuring that Charlie's going to get the ball here, especially with this bear front. We do a really nice job of cutting the distance in half here on this one and kind of using Charlie as a little bit of a decoy from right here to get us some cheap yards. So you can see us now start to work back towards the middle of the field again. If you notice, the missed field goal from the left hash reminded me of the fact that I don't like being over on the left hash. So we're getting back towards the middle here and going to the right in the event that we can't score this ball. They jump into their bear front again here. We do a really nice job picking all this up. We do our quarterback lead outside zone and essentially cut the distance in half again, which is a really good spot for us to be in now on 3rd and goal from really about the 1.5 or the 2 yard line. That's a good place for us. And this is really a great run here. We get hat on a hat. Charlie meets this ends up being D1 guy on D1 guy right in the hole, and Charlie just flat out stuns him here and keeps his feet running and spins out of it, and then punches us in for a big time touchdown. I mean, that's a huge play. And a little bit of what you talked about yesterday, kind of that flurry of points that happened. We get 14 points in about a 1.5 of clock time, which is the first of the 2 flurries of points.
Mm-hmm. So 14-0, and so here comes the onside kick, and I want to talk about that for a minute because I think most people don't realize, I won't say 100% of the time, but I'd say probably 75 to 80% of the time, we carry an onside kick into a game. And it is an onside kick specifically designed based on the alignment of the team we're playing. It's not like we just have a standard onside kick that we're just going to call whenever we want. You know, we actually scheme and plan that. And this was one where we really felt like we had an advantage. This is one of the D linemen here who's kind of off the ball a little bit. And, you know, folks may not believe this, but you and I talked during the week about kind of the situation, and I felt like 14-0 was going to be a really good opportunity, or going up 14 points, not necessarily 14-0, but when we went up 14, it was going to be a good chance to call this. And
yeah,
we came in the morning of the game and kind of did a light walkthrough, you know, just kind of got the kids loose and got the blood pumping and kind of, you know, just lined up some of the special teams and stuff. And I actually told our kickoff team that morning at the walkthrough, I said, be ready, because if we have a chance to go up 14, we're going to call it. And you know, so we go up 14-0, and I'll be honest, I kind of in the just the hecticness of the sideline and everything, I kind of forgot. And you actually kind of came running down to me and you're like, hey man, are we doing this? And I was like, yeah, actually we are going to do it. So this is just a little tap by Alex, and we want that ball to die right there because we felt like he was going to kind of retreat a little bit. And there's this nice bubble right here for us to just lay on it. So he does a great job. It ends up being him and Nick Bastian that both end up laying on this thing. And you know, I want to say I thought at the moment this was a huge dagger for us. We proceed to do absolutely nothing with the football now that we have it again.
Yeah, thanks for reminding me about that.
Yeah, well, you know, just gonna let you know that's what's coming here. It's going to be a really poor offensive drive from us.
Believe me, I know what's coming. Trust me, I know what's coming.
So it ends up being a little bit of a waste, but at the same time, you know, really, our kids are really cranked up by this. You know, I love when you put a plan together like that, and you have kind of one, I won't call it a trick necessarily, but you know, you have one of those little wrinkles in there and it goes, I mean, to perfection. So that's kind of neat. 14-0, and now we've got the ball again, and there's the first down hold right there. On the left tackle.
You know, this is one of those things where little coulda, shoulda, would. You know, I mean, it's unfortunate. We get a really bad holding penalty here on what really is about to be a nice run that's just kind of unnecessary, and that puts us way behind the chains, and we're going to give up a sack here on this drive as well coming up. That puts us even further behind the chains, and really this whole thing just derails and falls apart. This, though, is noteworthy because this is a play that we put in for the week. It's our flood concept, but we decided we're going to motion from it this week to try to make these guys chase us a little bit. And what ends up happening then is after we see a little bit of the overreaction to it, we end up well, I'll explain that later, but we end up calling a play off of this that gets us a good touchdown later on. But this is just flood from emotion here. Which gets us into a manageable scenario, but then we give up another sack. So tough series here for the left tackle. Not
Smar is really good.
Yeah, not ideal, not what you want here. But again, they're high school kids and they're trying their best. And you're playing against a Division I caliber kid. I mean, sometimes that's the way of the world. You just gotta take it sometimes, and you gotta deal with it.
So here comes the punt team. Hopefully we can kind of flip the field here. Another really nice punt by Eric. From the minus 48, I mean, that's a 30.
Yeah, that's a shot.
41-yard punt right there, 42-yard punt.
He's probably had two of the greatest punting games I've ever seen in the last two state championships, honestly.
Yeah, he was really good in the Valpo game too. And the thing too is, I mean, this is an absolute rocket off his foot, but in terms of distance, but the hang time is what makes the whole kick, because Larry's got to fair catch this. So not only do we kick it 40 yards, but we get no return as well, which is a there's that little kind of boundary runaway hitch again into the the short side.
Probably could have got a holding penalty on that one too, but yeah, I mean, we're doing a really nice job on defense still right now. I mean, this again is, you can see we're making them earn stuff. This is a busted pocket here, but we're not giving up those chunks of yards and stuff. We just about have them for a sack right there, and just barely.
ISO.
Again, you can see how many. They're jumping in and out of offensive systems almost every play now. And that becomes, if your kids aren't into the plan, they're not mentally into the plan, and they're struggling. That becomes something really hard to deal with and handle when you're seeing so many different things from play to play. They end up we get a pass interference on this one here. Andy catches the ball, so. Again, I mean, that's something we knew was going to be part of it. They were going to feed the two Division I kids on offense, and this ends up being one of the ones we were really afraid of here.
Yep. Boy, I'm to tell you, we spent so much time this week on this play, because this is one of their big hitters, and they love it.
This again was the big fear, was the two athletes they had. We really just didn't have someone that could one-on-one match up with them, so. The last play, you saw them essentially throw a one-man route all the way downfield to one of the Division I kids, and he catches it. Now this one, they run the other one out on their wheel route, which we had practiced relentlessly here. We cover it well. We don't get the offense. There was a push-off right there. We don't get that call, but, it is what it is. I mean, I don't know how many – I think in 7 years I've seen offensive pass interference called once. They do it twice and get 2 touchdowns off of it. It's not worth complaining about at the time, because we should have technically covered it a little bit better. But, I mean, we're hip to hip on him. He gets a nice little push off and knocks us off balance. And, you can see his arm extended out there. That's receiver play, though. I mean, every receiver in America does that.
Yep.
It never gets called. So there's nothing you can really do about it. We just don't make a play. And sometimes you get out-athleted, and that's the way that the world is. And they go 14-7, and, we've really only been hurt on 2 plays in, three of their series or whatever here. So we're playing good football. We got beat by singular people, and that sometimes is what happens. We just got to bring those guys to the sideline. We knew it was coming. They knew it was coming. It's just something you got to adjust to.
The game plan thing here on this, I won't say I knew we were going to block one, but I felt really strong about it. in watching the tape. And when you run to this kid, sometimes he would step down hard, but other times he would almost kind of try to half block both. And this is one that we talked about a lot during the week. And we have the option when we call this to kind of run it either direction. And in the game plan this week, it was, we want to run it from this side all the time. Every time we needed this team, we were going to run it from this side, and we felt like we were going to block it. And we kind of got that almost like half. He kind of tries to half block Brody here, and he tries to half block Maxon. He doesn't get quite enough of Maxon there, and Maxon's a really good job of flattening this down right here. Not a lot of the one you watched yesterday where he almost blocked the one in the Center Grove game. It's because he kind of bubbled it a little bit, and he was late, and he didn't quite make it. But this one, he does a really, really good job of staying flat, and actually probably dives a little bit too early, if I'm honest, but is able to get his hand on the football and a nice block. And, it ends up not being a big play in the game, but you never know. And at this point, 14-6 is better than 14-7.
I think the big thing is mentally, it just gets our kids positive again. Just because it's a positive play. I mean, if nothing else, it's just a positive play that kind of picks everyone's spirits back up just a tad bit. So
we knew they weren't going to kick it deep to us. They really didn't have a kid that could do that. I'll be honest with everybody that was out there. I was surprised that they kicked it to Chuck. That's who they kind of chose to pick on. Although they, both times, heck, we end up outside the 35. Here's a nice. I remember talking to you after that drive and seeing kind of in some of what what we call the adjuster was doing and kind of hanging back here backside to protect
backside cutbacks and the pulls.
Backside cutbacks, pulls, that if we went to just regular outside zone, that we were going to have a really good shot at it. And we do, and we get one out the gate.
Yeah, they start giving us a little bit more of a reduced front and stuff, which lends itself to that as well.
Mm-hmm.
Again, they're playing so many different fronts. Now they get caught in. They start off in a 4-eye and then shift to bear, and we catch them in a really good play here. So
we had tried to run the quarterback zone to the same side a couple of times, and that regular outside zone, I thought was a really good answer to some of their structure.
Yeah.
And now you see Zach flip it, and now you see Kenny come over as well.
Yeah, so this play here, the check Zach makes, we're going to get the exact same look later in the game here, and we rip off a big one. This is kind of the first time we've done this in the game, and Zach makes the right check. This is exactly what I wanted. When they did this is exactly what I wanted him to do. But it's the first time we've actually executed it in the entire game because we haven't seen it yet. So this first time it's a little bit messy, but you're going to see the exact same check and the exact same play later, and we absolutely rip off a monster run here just because, we hadn't executed up till this point. Yeah, we're struggling now. Now go back real quick. So, yeah, you can go back to that next play. This is another incomplete. Oh. So this one we've run it once now, and we're going to come back with that flood concept here again. Zach carries this one out and ends up being short, but we've shown it to them twice now, and so they've. You can see their coverage on this is a lot tighter. They're expecting the breaks because they're well coached, and so they know what's coming. They've probably talked about it on the sidelines, I'm sure. So we've kind of given them the window dressing a couple of times now, and now we're going to come back with a little bit of a quote unquote drawn in the dirt home run ball from the sidelines here. I kind of make an adjustment with Zach and the receivers when we got a little bit of downtime, and we're going to come back with our home run here in a second.
So we end up being a yard short there on a 4th down, and and now they take over. And I want to talk about the last. There's I don't recall. What do you think there is? About 2 minutes and 10 seconds left right now, roughly. I think when this drive starts.
Yeah. That's about what they're. Yeah, that's roughly about right. Might have been about 2 or less.
One in some of the film breakdown that we had done, we knew they like to be aggressive in the last 2 minutes, and they are not. They're not. They want points, and they're going to play for points, and I think you see that happen twice here in the last minute, where they're still moving and they're trying to get points, and there's a first down run. Incompletion on a nice play by Riker right here, so that stops the clock.
Yeah.
And now a third down throw, also incomplete. That stops the clock again.
I just remember they only took about 15 seconds or 20 seconds, off of the clock and stuff here. It may, a little more than that, whatever. But yeah, I mean, we got the ball back really quickly here, which was huge. So
the punt's not on here, but they did punt this ball, and we're going to take over here. I want to say this is a minute 50-ish.
Yeah.
When this drive starts, and we're on our own 27-yard line. So here's the quarterback zone that you talked about. Where we check to the same thing.
We literally get the exact same look and the exact same check, and our guys up front have now seen it, and we get a really good run. Zach wins the one-on-one battle and makes a huge play with his legs. Again, just him being into the plan. I mean, I know we're not throwing the ball well right now, but his ability to do these things with his legs is absolutely invaluable. I mean, it is unbelievable. And then we come back and kind of give them the, like I said, we've given them kind of the window dressing. We've talked to the kids about this adjustment that I want to make here. So this is going to look like flood again, which has been a really nice route for us. And we've gotten a scramble on it and a completion off of it. So we come back, we give them the window dressing again here with the motion and the whole 9 yards. Okay, go ahead and play it.
And then we do this.
But what we've called here is actually flood and go. So Zach's going to have to pull up in the pocket short. Colby, so you can see 12. We actually come after their best player, which isn't normally what you want to do. But, again, this is one of those gut instinct plays that I felt like, look, this kid is so good and so talented, and he's such a smart football player. He's going to mentally trigger for this flood again. And you can see we get his feet stuck in the ground. Just for us right there, he expects that flood. You can see his feet get out of whack because we don't run it, and that gives us just enough to get by him. And Zach throws maybe one of the best balls that's ever been thrown in Dragon history here on this as he's getting hit and pulls up in the pocket. And, I mean, a massive, massive touchdown. So, again, as a coordinator, this is one of those things where this is a gamble. Had we practiced this? Never. We have never run this route in at this point, 6 years of football with me calling the plays. But we have the kids to do it. Our kids are talented enough to do it. Conceptually, it made sense. The reasoning behind it made sense. And we're going to go ahead and roll the dice and try to execute it. And a huge credit to our kids for actually getting that job done. But this is, again, one of those kind of instinctual plays of all the information I had at the time told me that this is going to work. And the kids agreed with it. The feedback from the players was spot on with what I was seeing. And a massive credit to our boys. They went out and executed another really difficult play, and we got paid off for it.
So now 21-6, and boy, I think now there's maybe a minute 15-ish to go here.
Yeah, so this is one of the things I said on the headset here. I was going to burn my timeouts and try to get the ball back again, but like you said, this is kind of one of the – you asked the question yesterday. This is one of the things that starts to happen. You're in a 14-7 game, and then all of a sudden it's 21-7, and you start pressing because you think you've got to get in a shootout with us, and that normally is not the right thing to do, and so they actually stopped the clock for us here. They go deep on the first play, and Cade does a great job breaking the first play up, and they stop the clock for us, so I don't have to use a timeout. They come
And
back
then they start
with another pass.
and they start working the sideline to stop the
Yeah.
clock.
So he goes out of bounds for me again, so it saves me another timeout because they're trying to drive, 80 yards in a minute something. There they go. They stop the clock for us again. We get some good pressure here on this one and make him make a huge mistake, and he throws a pick.
Mm-hmm.
So,
and this ball, in talking to some of their, we know some of their guys on the coaching staff really well, and in talking to them, this was supposed to go right here.
Yeah.
And I think he thinks it's to him, and he tries to catch it. And if he doesn't tap that, it probably goes there, and that's probably a pretty decent catch and run for them. But big play for us here. So
yeah, huge play. Huge play.
Yeah.
And we saved our timeouts, which is even more critical, really. That was big, having those timeouts there. So
if I recall correctly,
the goal of this drive, when I got the boys over, the goal of this drive was to keep the ball in the middle of the field, essentially, and get a field goal. Because I thought 21 was the magic number.
Mm-hmm.
We're on pace for that. In my mind right now, I felt like if we can get 24 in the first half, I felt like the game was over,
Mm-hmm.
and all I really wanted was the field goal, because I didn't think that we would give up another essentially 3 scores at this point
Mm-hmm.
in the game. And our defense has been playing well. Our offense has been moving the ball, and keeping it in the middle of the field for an easy chip shot field goal was paramount here. And so that's all we're going to work for. Go to the right, get the ball right in the middle of the field. Nice little inside zone play for us here. And you can see we're starting to wear them down right now too. Their tackling's not as crisp. We're starting to kind of physically take over the game a little bit.
I think there's 14 seconds left when this play is run. And so we call the inside zone. You call a timeout, and I remember the conversation. And I said, we about broke that one.
Then there was like 8 seconds. It's like 8.
So there's 14 at this one, and I said, we about broke that one, and we're this little block away here from really having something. And I remember a little bit of a conversation about what do we think, what should we do, want the ball in the middle of the field, and we were kind of left middle here, and I remember my conversation with you was, I said, well, let's just call the same thing, and maybe we break it. And if we don't, okay, we're right in the middle of the field and we're set up for a really good field goal. The problem
was, it was the range, so it was a 45-yard field goal. Even though it's from the middle of the field, that's still a pretty good shot in there,
mm-hmm.
With the tighter goalposts and everything else. So, essentially the decision then became, do we throw it to just take up less time, or do we burn the final timeout after the run? So we had a long conversation there. I talked to the boys, and the plan was to run inside zone again and to the right and get it closer to the middle of the field than we actually were. And I specifically had told Charlie on this play, I said, listen, if you get resistance, you have to fall to the ground so that I can call the timeout to get a field goal. And I said, you understand me? Yes, sir. So it's funny because on the IHSAA's broadcast, because they're on the sideline, I talk to the kids. We go over the play. We make sure the blocking schemes are good, what we're looking for, what we want, get up there, call the play, get off the ground, get the ball to the official, call the timeout, kick a field goal, etc. And you can see on the IHSAA's broadcast, right as they broke the huddle, I grabbed Charlie's arm real quick, and he looks back at me, and I said, listen, if you get any resistance, you have to go down to the ground so I can call a timeout. I said, are we clear on that? And he nodded. You can see him nod his head, and he says, yes, sir.
Mm-hmm.
You obviously can't hear him, but he says, yes, sir, a second time. And what you're about to watch here is not Charlie being defiant or any of that stuff. It is just Charlie being Charlie and making one of the greatest runs in the history of the game of football I can tell you right now, my heart is literally in the upper part of my throat because I realize that he's broken through like 6 tackles to this point, and he's got 2 choices. Either one, he's going to go down and we're going to miss this field goal, or 2, he has to score because I don't have any time left. And I actually remember screaming no on the headsets because I thought we just lost our 3 points. And then I went from that almost vomiting up my own heart to maybe the most excited fist pumping Tiger Woods style that I've ever done in my entire life. And lost my voice here. I mean, it was
a great photo of that fist pump that is in the Daily Reporter after this game.
If anybody would have been in front of that fist, they would have disintegrated like it was Infinity War, man. They would have just, poof, gone to nothing. That was a Mike Tyson caliber punch. You know, the funny part about this, again, it's only funny because, one, this run is just insane. I mean, it's absolutely insane. It is one of the greatest runs I have ever seen. But it's funny because when the game was over with and we won and we're state champions and all that stuff, and this play ends the half. This is it. When the game was over with, you know, I went to Charlie and he kind of came over to me with his head down a little bit, and you know, he said, you know, Coach, I know what you told me to do at halftime, and I'm sorry I didn't do it. I said, well, let me tell you something, pal. Forgiven, because I'm thankful for what you did. And he said, as soon as I broke the group of tackles, he goes, I saw the clock and knew, oh my God, if I don't score this, Coach Ralph is going to be so mad at me. And I'm like, that process is in your head that you thought that I'm going to be mad at you if you don't score this. And he goes, yeah, I knew you were going to be so mad because you told me to go down. And I didn't go down. And I thought I have to score this or he's going to be so mad. I'm like, no, I would have been, but let's just stay in the universe where you scored the touchdown. Let's not go into the alternate one where you didn't. Let's just stay happy and enjoy this, man. He smiled. We had a good laugh about it, but you know, there's so many people that said, oh my God, what a great call. What a gutsy play by the coordinator. And you know, and I'm like, no, it wasn't. Yeah. That play was not supposed to happen. Like and that's one of the things, the coordinator, you know, people's egos and stuff get so out of control sometimes, but I mean, that wasn't the plan. I didn't do that. That was absolutely not I mean, you've essentially watched 2 touchdowns in a row now, one of which was something that I essentially drew up in the dirt with the kids and asked, can we execute this? And the good players on our team said, yeah, Coach, we can get that done. And yes, what you're seeing is what's happening. We can make this happen. And 2 kids essentially execute flawlessly and make it look like a wonderful play call. If that's incomplete, you know, I look like an idiot. You know, who calls a one-off like that? You know, but our kids make me look really good. And then that last play, you know, it absolutely was not supposed to be what it became. I mean, it went from, I want you to get us 2 or 3 yards and fall down to the ground, to quite frankly, what may be the greatest run I ever see in my lifetime. And I had nothing to do with that. Nothing. I mean, it's actually the opposite of what I had asked for. But people are like, man, that's just such a great call and so gutsy and pays off. And it's like, no. And I have no bones about saying that. And it's not a knock on Charlie either. That's a competitive kid in a competitive scenario that made a play and felt like he could make a play, and he did. And sometimes, well, actually a lot of times, great players make you look like a great coach, and I'm not afraid to admit that. So, you know, there's a lot of things in between that go into being a coordinator, but the reality of it is you're only as good as your players are, and you're only as good as your players' execution is. And, you know, I got a lot of undue credit for that particular play, and all I did was stay on the sidelines and hope we got a field goal. So it is what it is.
So we go in up 28-6, and we'll talk tomorrow a little bit about halftime and the message to the kids and sort of that thing to set up a second half that, you know, honestly, offensively is not very good for us.
Yeah, I mean, some of that is – I didn't tell the kids this at the time, but if you remember yesterday's video, some of that – and I told the coaches this in private. Like I said, 21 to me was the magic number. We're now sitting at 28. and I couldn't tell the kids this, but I told the coaches this out in the hallway. The whole goal of the second half in this game was essentially to just mathematically beat them. And whether, this was about survival. The only way that we could lose this game is that we come out and do things that we just don't do.
Mm-hmm.
And we come out and let their two really exceptional athletes beat us by themselves. And I wasn't going to let that happen, and I wasn't going to tell the boys that. We came in, we made our adjustments, we talked to the kids, we gave them the plan, which we'll go over that stuff tomorrow in the next episode. But, the philosophy of the second half in this game essentially was to bleed clock, not turn the ball over, make them drive really long fields and press. I did not think they could score 21 points on us in a half. I didn't think we could get it in a game. So the only way that we could have done that was by screwing things up for ourselves. And it's not normally the really hyper-aggressive style that I use or that I'm kind of all about it, that we've become known for, so to speak. But, again, it's about winning games. I don't care about putting points up on the board and scoring touchdowns and all that stuff. At the end of the day, my job is to run a successful offense and win football games. Mm-hmm. And what I felt like and the staff agreed was going to win this game for us and make sure we were a state champion was don't give them the ball back unnecessarily. You're going to see us snap the ball way later in the count every time, which is not something we do. I mean, we were snapping the ball inside of 5 seconds on every game clock, and that's not something we do. But it became a mathematical equation of how many plays can we run and then how valuable is each one of those plays to us in timing purposes. So it's a little bit of a boring second half, but it's a second half that gets us a state championship, and that's all that really matters. So, I agree with that. It's not going to be, a lot of excitement here, and should be probably one of the quicker episodes that we've ever had. But, again, it's what wins, and that's all that matters.
Well, so we'll go ahead and stop here, and we'll pick up tomorrow for the second half and a finish to your second state championship here at New Palestine. So, as always, we'll I don't know if you can hear that or not.
That's the new puppy. Yeah,
it is. That's a new puppy. The dog is going absolutely insane out there. So we will we'll pick it up tomorrow, and as always, we'll take any questions you have or anything specific you want us to talk about. So, Coach, appreciate it, and we'll see you again tomorrow.
Sounds good. Thank you.